I'm muted. Hello and welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp, and pagers have exploded across Lebanon, injuring 3,000 or 2,800 people across Lebanon and some in Syria. This is a new level of cyber attack that we have not really seen before. It's pretty crazy what's going on here. This has been done by Israel. They haven't taken credit exactly. However, a higher up minister in Israel tweeted out a suggestion that it was their doing and then deleted that tweet. This is a pretty crazy escalation of things. I don't know how blowing up thousands of pagers in people's pockets doesn't count as terrorism, because you're just blowing up pockets of people around the entire country, killing some of them. They said something like 8 dead, they believe, others critically injured, and it's just an act of terror. These people weren't like actively doing anything. It's not like they're on the front lines or something. Now, I know there are people that just hear the term Hezbollah and they go, oh my God, that means dirty, evil person. But let's remember that, imagine how many people work for like the Pentagon. Imagine how many secretaries there are. Imagine how many, and I didn't say male or female, it could be either. But imagine how many people there are that clean the floors at the Pentagon that are Pentagon employees. Imagine, like, so if all of their crotches blew up simultaneously, I feel like some people might have something to say about that. And I know some of you, including me, are going, wait, why are there still pagers? Why does anyone have a pager? Even in a country that maybe has a little bit less technology than, say, the United States or Israel, why do they have pagers? Well, apparently, a lot of Hezbollah was communicating with pagers in order to be a little less hackable. And clearly that has, I was going to say backfired, but that's a little too on the nose right here. But so they use pagers intentionally in order to not be using that's a proper sentence structure right there, in order to not use cell phones and iPhones and the things that are most easily surveilled. This is from New York Times. Hundreds of pagers blew up at the same time across Lebanon Tuesday. Killed 8, injured more than 2,000. They're now saying 2,800. The attack came a day after Israeli leaders warned that they were considering stepping up their military campaign against Hezbollah. The Israeli military declined comment. A doctor said that many victims had injuries to their faces, particularly the eyes, as well as to their hands and stomachs. One of those killed was an 8-year-old girl. So there you go. They're also not just hitting Hezbollah. They're hitting many others. An 8-year-old girl was killed. And I'm going to take a wild guess. I'm going to take just a shot in the dark here that the 8-year-old girl was not a Hezbollah leader. I'm going to take a wild guess there. And also, I think this speaks to the ramping up of just digital warfare, of cyber attacks across the world. This is what we're going to be seeing more of. And in this case, it had to do with blowing them up and actually injuring and killing people. I think what we're going to see more of across this world is cyber attacks that just destroy infrastructure, that cause gas leaks, that cause power grids to shut down. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And this is just an example of where cyber warfare is headed. And it's pretty horrific to see this and to see it hitting innocent people. And Israel is just expanding this war. I've talked about it many times that Israel wants this war largely to expand, although there are some caveats to that. They don't want all-out war with Lebanon and Iran, because it seems that they would not be able to sustain in that. However, they do believe that the United States would get more fully involved, as opposed to just shipping them bombs every 36 hours, would get more fully involved if they were able to expand this war in a larger way. And, you know, there are signs that that's where things are headed. And a lot of people are very worried about that. And of course, many have pointed out that Netanyahu believes he would probably be in prison if this war ends, if this genocide against Gaza ends. He believes quite likely he'd be in prison. So why not keep it going? And that's just one of the many stories I'm going to have for you on this hour. Please click thumbs up and click share. And thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. I can't thank you guys enough. We are suppressed. I am one of the most censored comedian commentators in America, and it really takes a lot of help from you guys to even continue to have a show. But here's another thing that happened just the other day is Houthis from Yemen hit central Israel with a hypersonic missile. And this is the first time they've successfully done that. It may be the first. I'm not sure if it's the first hypersonic missile fired by Yemen by the Houthis, but it succeeded in hitting Israel, which, you know, this one missile, I don't think it killed anyone, but this one missile doesn't say anything necessarily, except that they do have the capability. They have the capability to do this more than Israel used to think. And that is because the Iron Dome is not what we've been told it is. The Iron Dome does not seem fully capable of stopping hypersonic missiles. So here you have one hitting Tel Aviv during this ongoing. And again, these strikes would not happen against Israel if they weren't committing genocide. Like if they weren't just obliterating Gaza, you wouldn't see these strikes on Israel. Not like this, not at this frequency. Not this often. And so Israel has themselves to blame at the end of the day. And yeah, I struggle. I'm sorry, I'm tripping over my words so much right now. I struggle to express this insanity and this genocide in a new way every day. Like I've been covering it nonstop for over 11 months. Of ethnic cleansing, of just people being murdered on such a mass scale. And I don't know how to, I hope you can understand where I'm coming from rather than just think, well, he's not exactly presenting a good show if he's tripping over his words every 3 seconds. But I don't know how else to say it. Here is something that's slightly new and totally horrific about the ongoing genocide is so Hamas put out a list of the names, the actual names, ages, because every once in a while you hear one of these true propagandists say like, oh, those are just Hamas numbers. They're just making up numbers as to how many people have died in Gaza. They're just numbers. They're just making them up. And so Hamas, in order to show, no, these are not just numbers, actually put out a very long document, 649 pages of names and ages of those who have been murdered over the past year by Israel. And it's not the full 40,000 or over 40,000 because many of those killed, we don't know their names or ages. They're lost under rubble and stuff, etc. But it is 34,000. They put out a list of the names and ages of 34,000. And there's a very, very viral post. Maybe you've seen it. One of the most viral posts I can recall seeing recently that hasn't been tweeted by Elon Musk, which doesn't count because he owns the platform and makes all of his stuff go viral. Who knows what string of curse words I just put inside that cough. For those of you listening to the podcast, I hope you're not getting tired of me coughing my coughing my curse words and my genocides. But this is the post that has gone crazy viral. And it's a repost of the list of names. And she just put above it, the first 14 pages are under 1 year old. And she repeated it several times. The first 14 pages are under 1 year old. No matter which part of that sentence you stress, it should be stressed. The first 14 pages are under 1 year old. Like, totally insane. The first 14 pages. I know, I can't stop saying it. But this had already been. Oh, now that's weird. Oh, her post. Okay. Her post has been retweeted 143,000 times. And let me see if that's. I thought it might even be higher than that. Yeah, no, it's 143,000 times it's been retweeted, which is insanely viral for Twitter these days. And the post itself has been retweeted 42,000 times. So you add those two together, and I think a lot of the world has seen that post, which is the only positive I can take out of this document, which is a horror show. But okay, I am not going to spend this entire episode on Israel, as I've done many times before. I have a lot more news for you. I have video of Jill Stein killing it recently as she gets attacked and mercilessly by the Democrats, but she's doing a good job of punching back, as well as her vice presidential candidate, Butch Ware. And I'm going to play some of those clips. I've got more information on the Uhuru verdict, on the Uhuru 3 and the prosecution of freedom of speech. I've got a short clip of Hillary Clinton telling you that freedom of speech needs to be more criminalized, because clearly we need to hear from a criminal like Hillary Clinton about how freedom of speech should be criminalized. Clearly, we need to get it from her. She needs to let us know. And so I have that for you. I have a little more on the new assassin attempt of Donald Trump. And I'm trying to find... Yeah, I don't know if they wrote it. They might not have written an article about it, but anyway, I'll get to that later. But so everyone, click thumbs up, throw in a comment, please. The comments help with the whole algorithms and everything that we're fighting here. And yeah, please let them know. Let people know, share it, all those good things. So here's a little more on the Uhuru verdict. I brought it to you the other day that the Uhuru 3, and I had there's been a little confusion on whether it's Uhuru 3 or 4 because there's 4 defendants. Apparently, one of the defendants had been kicked out of the Uhuru movement. I don't know why. Maybe just disagreements. Who knows? And he had joined another group or created another group or something. So they were prosecuting him as well, even though he's not in the Uhuru movement anymore. So that's why it's the Uhuru 3/4. But anyway, as I brought to you the other day, they were found innocent. They were found not guilty of being foreign agents, of being Russian agents, of violating the Foreign Agent Registry Act. They were found not guilty of all that. And yet they were somehow found guilty of conspiracy, which I and others had been saying that how can you be guilty of a conspiracy to commit a thing that you didn't commit? It doesn't make any sense. And sure enough, I've now heard other commentary. I've heard lawyers weigh in on it. And apparently even the judge, when he got the verdict, seemed a little confused that how could they be guilty of conspiracy without being guilty of being foreign agents. And so it seems to me, and I am not a lawyer, but it seems to me like this should probably get overturned. Like the guilty part of it should probably get overturned on appeal, because I don't know how you can be guilty of a conspiracy to not do the thing you didn't do. Unclear on that. But many are now touting and writing articles about how this is a big win for freedom of speech. This showed that speech is legal in this country. It's supposed to be in this country. And that the Uhuru 3, whether you love everything they've ever said or not, even if you are a right-wing fascist, a right-winger who hates, black people, hates socialists, hates Uhuru movement, hates all of it, you should still say, oh, but they have the right to say what they want. Because that's how this should work. That's how our supposed freedom of speech should work. And I highlight the word supposed. Anyway, here's one article by Caitlin Kennedy. Uhuru 3 verdict reached a historic free speech trial, comes to a close. They've been convicted on one of the 2 criminal charges. But I mainly want to just read this quote by Chairman Yeshitela, who created and runs the Uhuru movement. He said, I was really, 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 really impressed by the jury, by that jury being able to say that black people have agency. Basically, black people can say things, and it's their right to say them, and it doesn't mean they were told to say them. Because there was racist undertones of this prosecution, because it was also like the part of the undertones of the prosecution where this black movement couldn't have come up with these ideas themselves. They couldn't have come up with the idea that the U.S. is an empire and needs to be reined in and is an empire based on genocide. They couldn't have come up with these by their lonesome. They must have been told that by conniving Russians. Yeshitela continues. He says, that's what they said, that black people have agency, that we have thoughts, that we have plans, we have discussions, etc. And all this stuff. They showed where we're supposed to be working for the Russians. I mean, supposed to, as in supposed to have been, not supposed to. We need to fix that word, honestly. New word. So, supposed to have been working for the Russians, and they brought in what was supposed to be the evidence of that, and it didn't work. He means it didn't work because they didn't have any evidence. But I just wanted to highlight that now that I've been, seeing other commentary on it, other people are also baffled by this decision, and it is apparently a big win for freedom of speech and a big win against FARA, which you guys have heard me rail against before, the Foreign Agent Registry Act, which used to be specifically for lobbyists and politicians. Now, one of the who did run for mayor of St. Petersburg, but outside of that, they're not politicians. But it's supposed to be specifically for lobbyists and politicians who are acting on behalf of another government, another country, and not supposed to be for the press, for the media, for commentators. Yet now, since 2016, basically, they've started saying, oh, no, this goes for anybody who just says things out loud, which is, yet again, that would mean that every Japanese company that works in this country that has lobbyists lobbying our government, which they do, you don't think Toyota's ever pulled a government official aside, state or federal, and said, hey, this would be good for the car companies? Really? You don't think so? You don't think BP or Shell ever pulled one of our elected officials aside and said, hey, we give you a lot of donations, so I think it'd be pretty good for you to make this decision. You don't think any of that's ever happened? Bullshit. So that would make, like, they are foreign agents way before a media personality is, or some of the people that they've gone after. So in that regard, on that topic, here is what just happened the other day. It's actually getting very little coverage, zero coverage that I could find in the U.S. media, other than maybe local. An RT employee. So I mentioned in the last show that reminded you guys that RT America, the company I actually work for, was a separate company from RT International. RT America shut down 2.5 years ago when my show ended, redacted tonight. RT International still exists, but it has very few people in the United States, and they work out of Miami mostly. But there are a few employees of RT International in Miami. And apparently an RT employee was raided by the FBI, and she was beaten during a raid in Miami. An employee of the Russian news outlet RT was assaulted by armed FBI agents during a raid on her Miami home. The woman, whose identity remains undisclosed for security reasons, was asleep when approximately 20 FBI agents entered her residence early in the morning. According to RT's report, the woman was not permitted, and they've covered up her name, so we don't know what her name is. We also don't know what country she's from, I don't think. The woman was not permitted to dress before the search began. She was physically assaulted. She stated the FBI agents conducted a search of her body under a separate warrant for her body. Afterward, they interrogated her for nearly 5 hours about RT's editor-in-chief, but they also wanted to know a lot about former U.S. Marine and intelligence officer Scott Ritter. Most of you know who Scott Ritter is. I've had Scott Ritter on this show many times because he has a lot of important views and accurate views on U.S. foreign policy. And they seem to be after Scott Ritter recently. They raided his home. They stole all his devices as well, but they've come up with nothing that he's done that's illegal. They've stolen his passport as well, so he can't leave the country. But they now have abused and beaten and interrogated for 5 hours this RT employee, and she has said that a lot of that 5 hours was about Scott Ritter. Now, if you listen to Scott Ritter, he says this is all insane. And he has no connection to RT employees other than the fact that he's written a couple of articles for the RT website and got paid $150 to write an article for the RT website. And as he said, as with other, anytime you write with any website, the extent of the I don't know, coaching or whatever, what you're supposed to say was zero. They basically gave him a topic and said, can you write about this? And he said, yes. And then he wrote his own thoughts. That's right. Scott Ritter also has the ability to think for himself. So this is ongoing. This just crazy assault on freedom of speech in our own country, in the United States. I know many of you are not in the U.S., but this is going on in the U.S. I've covered how it's going on in the U.K. heavily too, especially with Richard Medhurst and others. Richard Medhurst, by the way, spoke at the UN about it the other day, about the assault on him, held in prison for 24 hours for his freedom of speech that he is supposedly has. Here is Hillary Clinton, though, the other day. You know, she's always on the right side of history. That's what I love about Hillary Clinton. She is just always on the right side of history. This is Hillary Clinton on Rachel Maddow. Oh, it's good to see Rachel Maddow still doing absolute mountains of bullshit.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are...
By the way, the beginning of this was cut off. And so I just want to tell you what she clearly said, which is Russians boosted Trump in 2016. That's all been debunked. It's all been crazily debunked. Mueller indicted 14 people from a clickbait farm, and he dropped all the indictments. Like, it's the level of debunked Russiagate has been 4 years of debunking on debunking. There are people on the bottom of the debunk that don't even know the people on the top of the debunking. It's just mountains of debunking. And yet they're still pushing this garbage. Utter garbage. Look, I despise, on a level you can't imagine, Donald Trump. And yet, Russia is not why Donald Trump won, okay? I'm sorry. It's all been debunked.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence because and boost
criminal charges for speaking about the U.S. Because she's calling it Russian propaganda, but you got to remember what these lunatics like Hillary Clinton and the entire Democratic establishment, you got to remember what they call Russian propaganda. Standing up for civil rights, saying the U.S. is an empire, saying the U.S. has killed 6 million people with global war on terror, saying the U.S. cracks down on freedom of speech, saying that Democrats and Republicans are the same on 95% of all the structural issues of this country. Those kind of things to them, because they're trying to continue to hold on to their ownership of the world. To them, that's all Russian propaganda rather than the truth, which is what it is. And so she is here on television saying that what we need is criminal charges for the truth. Thank you, Hillary Clinton. Thank you for being out there, standing up for what's right in the world. Just what a lovely human. Let me read a few of your comments real quick before we keep going. I have a little more on Farah, and then I've got some great clips coming up of Jill Stein and her VP, Butch Ware. Arcane Eclectic Winston says, I wonder why Israel didn't report on the people killed by the hypersonic missile that hit Tel Aviv a couple days ago. Were there people killed? Because I saw that no one was killed, but you're saying it's possible that report has been updated, so maybe there were people killed. Mike Balkonsky says the pages were just defending themselves. Very true. It's very true. The pages were just standing up for what's right. Martin Trammell said, keep your phone behind a protective shield. Travis Rutch says, stepping back slowly from my phone right now. Yeah, I mean, I don't trust the phones. I brought the story the other day to you that how it's now been leaked that they absolutely are listening to you when you're talking to your phone. Like that, we knew they had the capability. Like Snowden revealed to us they have the capability to listen to you through your phone. But what we now have is a leak from inside an ad agency saying, one of the big ones, Cox ad agency, from inside an ad agency saying we listen to people's phones and we decide how to market to them based on what we're listening to. So now we also know they can blow up your phone in your pocket. Really, your phone? Your phone is the most horrible device we could ever have. And yet I know we're all addicted to it. My smoke signals are not very good. And so Twitter smoke signal is absolutely awful. It's just really tough to read. It's just a bunch of smoke in your face. So I'm stuck with the phone, and it is just the worst goddamn device. It surveils everything you're doing. It monitors all your financial transactions. It's dissolving our brains. It is wiping the ruling elite are wiping their asses with our frontal lobes, and then it can also be blown up to blow your crotch off when they feel like it. When they want to sterilize the world, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to blow all of our crotches off. That's what's next. Let's see. Stolen TPS report says, remember the guy who had a birth certificate of his kids and had to go get the death certificate? Yeah. That story. For those of you who didn't hear that story, you're very lucky. A man in Gaza, Palestinian, his wife gave birth to twins. He went to get the birth certificate, to basically register their birth. And while he was registering their birth, they were killed by a bomb. It's just unbelievably horrific. Richard McDonald says, I think when you were just speaking about what our former Secretary of State said that you mispronounced her name, it's Hitlery. I don't know. That sounds a little like cutlery, which doesn't sound so bad. Wendy Gofton says, this country world is a real piece of shit. So sick of living in fascism. And Matt Mosley said this from the woman, meaning Hillary, that one said, I think one should have one persona in public and another in private. Basically, one should be two-faced. Yes, that is absolute. But that also implies that she's a good person in private. I don't think she is. I'd be very surprised if we found out Hillary was like a good person behind closed doors. Okay, let me just bring you a little bit more about this. It's the war on foreign influence, as Reason Magazine is calling it, has become a war on the First Amendment. 2024 has become the year of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Last week, the FBI accused Russian agents of funneling $10 million. I covered that story already. Also, Senator Bob Menendez was convicted of taking bribes from the Egyptian military intelligence. Now, that is the type of thing that FARA maybe should be used for. When you're taking bribes, sacks of money coming from Egyptian military to get you to do things in the government, the U.S. government, because you're a senator, that's what FARA is meant for. Not, you said something we disagree with, you're going to prison. The authorities have also indicted Representative Henry Kuehler for taking bribes from a Mexican bank and an Azerbaijani state oil company. They're also investigating New York City Mayor Eric Adams' staff for taking campaign money from Turkey. See, these are very different things than someone like me or others on a YouTube show saying things we've been saying for 25 years, and all of a sudden now it's illegal. Practically, the question is how to separate Americans being ordered or tricked by a foreign government from Americans doing things on their own accord. Philosophically, the question is whether stamping out quote-unquote foreign influence is possible or desirable in a free society, especially one that is so heavily involved in the rest of the world. I mean, I will say that they're missing a bit of the truth here, which is that The ruling elite, when sometimes people don't like when I call them elite because they think that means good, like you are an elite professional. But elite just means the top echelon. So they are the top of the rulers. It doesn't mean they're good. Yay, you are the elite. No, elite just means you're the top of the ruling assholes. You're just an asshole above the rest. But anyway, when they're using the FAIR Act, it's not because they are trying to stamp out foreign influence. I mean, maybe some of the time it is with those bribes. But when they go after people for freedom of speech and they don't like how they're speaking, like with the Uhuru movement, they don't. It's not actually about foreign influence. It's about they want to crush these ideas. They want to crush those of us who are speaking out. That's what it's really about. And so I think this article kind of misses the key point there, but they do give some interesting information. They said the first time the Supreme Court had overruled Congress on First Amendment grounds actually concerned foreign influence. In the 1960s, a law required the Postmaster General to screen the mail for communist political propaganda, quote unquote, when former American Civil Liberties Union Director Lamont received a notice that his copy of the Peking Review was being held up by the post office. He sued. The Supreme Court ruled that trying to withhold any media based on its content, even hostile foreign media, violated Americans' First Amendment rights. Wow. This is like to the letter what they're doing is withholding media because they claim it's from foreigners. In 2021, authorities seized the .com domains of the Iranian government and falsely accused other outlets of affiliation with the Iranian government. Yeah, and I remember when this happened in 2021, they just grabbed the Press TV's website, which is an Iranian news network, but CBC is a foreign news network. BBC is a foreign news network. RT is. CGTN, they all are foreign news networks. To just decide you can start grabbing websites that should piss off everyone. It doesn't matter where the website came from. Congress forced the Chinese company ByteDance to divest from TikTok, basically to sell it to massive hedge fund owners. Since 2017, the Department of Justice has also required some foreign news outlets to register as foreign agents, such as RT. In 2022, the Department of Justice accused Russian operatives of supporting a one-man California secessionist movement. Like a one dude. In June 2020, the New York Times unveiled an Israeli influence campaign that tried to personally target members of Congress. So the reason they're saying this now, this article, is because they're pointing out that there's other foreign influence that is allowed and totally allowed, like borderline promoted by the U.S. government. The New York Times in 2020 unveiled an Israeli influence campaign that tried to personally target members of Congress with social media messaging. Again, a closer look revealed something far less scary. Israeli operatives were spamming 3 congressmen's replies with heavy-handed propaganda. So, in this case, it actually was not achieving much influence from Israel, but AIPAC is an Israeli lobbying group, and they should absolutely be foreign agents. They're the definition of foreign agent. But they're not registered as foreign agents. The operatives sometimes, this is the propaganda from Israeli operatives, the operatives sometimes mixed up which accounts they were supposed to be using for this spamming and said speaking as a middle-aged Jewish woman from an account whose profile picture was a black man. FARA has an exemption for bona fide religious, scholastic, academic, or scientific pursuits of the fine arts. That has allowed foreign powers to funnel huge amounts of money into nonprofit policy research institutes known as think tanks without registering these activities. So they're going after those of us in the media while they allow massive think tanks to promote Israel's wants and needs, to promote Turkey, to promote other countries. There's been some leaked footage of Israeli brigadier general telling a pro-Israel conference in Washington that, quote, "We are a different government," meaning a foreign government, "working on foreign soil, and we have to be very, very cautious." This is Israeli brigadier general saying we're a foreign government working on foreign soil, and yet not registered as foreign agents. So anyway, just every segment I bring to you on this, it just gets worse and worse. Who they're attacking, how horribly they're going after them, how much they're harassing them or trying to destroy their lives. They're ramping it all up right before this election. But speaking of this election, oh, and by the way, before I get to the clips of Jill Stein, Butch Ware, others, could you, everyone, make sure you click the thumbs up, make sure you click the subscribe, make sure you subscribe on both my channels, youtube.com/Moment of Clarity and rumble.com/Lee Camp. That would be awesome in case one of those channels gets shut down at some point. And the most important thing, join my email list, because that is the thing that that is not on a platform, so they can't steal it from me. So join my free email list. It's at leecamp.com. You'll go there. If you allow a pop-up, the pop-up will come up asking you to join the free email list. Completely free. Sign up there. And then last, I'll just throw in there, if any of you want to throw in a super chat, it would be amazing. I noticed we haven't gotten any yet, but I still love you. It's on the cusp, I'll be honest, but I still love you. It's on the cusp. We'll just leave it there. We'll leave it at I love you. And for now. Okay, here is Butch Ware, Jill Stein's VP candidate, and dropping truth bombs, as the kids say. And there's been a lot of these clips circulating from their appearance on The Breakfast Club, which is on iHeartRadio. It's a huge show, huge platform, heard by millions around the nation. And for the most part, thank you, Teresa, for the super chat. Yes, I love you guys again. And thank you, Omar. Appreciate it. Solidarity. Huge platform. But for the most part, the two hosts of The Breakfast Club, I know one of them is Charlemagne, right? Isn't it? They went after them. Like, not largely. It was a very rough interview where they largely didn't even want to let them speak. And yet, it seemed that Jill Stein and Butch Ware did an impressive job of representing themselves in a adversarial environment such as this interview, which basically, if they're getting on a large platform, it's going to be adversarial, because guess what? Our media is owned by the red and blue corporate powers. So if you are Jill Stein or other third-party candidates, you are going to get harassed when you go on these interviews, because they work for the blue and red empire rulers. Thank you, Sir Edward Ross, for the donation. Shout out to Charmine Narwani and The Cradle. Yes, The Cradle does great work, although they have just been recently banned from Facebook and Meta and Instagram all at once, which means they do great work. That's how you know. That's how you know they do great work. Okay, here's Butch Ware dropping the old truth bombs.
That's Democratic governor in California. That's Democrat, mayors in places like New York City. It's Democrats that are running cop cities. So the thing is, bro, fascism is already here. It's just that one of it is like fascism and the other is fascism. But the truth is that the purple fascists, the purple imperialists, Team Red and Team Blue, are run by the same funders, and who funds you runs you. So there's a discourse about putting off fascism, but the reality is that fascism was already here, because we already can't speak freely. We already have people, university presidents, losing their job under democratic regimes. We already have kids that are lining up for peaceful protests, having their heads knocked open, or you have the cops standing to the side at UCLA so the thugs can knock kids' heads open. So I'm sorry, the fear mongering ain't gonna work on me.
The fear-mongering he's talking about is they did the thing that you can expect Jill Stein is always going to get, which is Trump's so horrible, 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 horrible. How dare you get in the way of Trump being more easily defeated? And he's saying, Butch Ware is saying, as you guys heard, the fear-mongering is not going to work on me, because we're already in fascism. It's just one is a fascism with a smiley face, and one's a fascism with a frowny face. And basically, you have a lot of liberals across this country telling you, you need to go with the smiley face because it feels better. It just feels a lot better to have to be arrested for freedom of speech by someone smiling. Thank you, New Jersey Devil. Solidarity for the super chat. And, you know, he was mentioning that you have Democratic governors in a lot of these places that have cop cities. Cop cities, of course, being these massive training grounds for more militarized police, for more police to crack heads, for more police to go after protesters, to go after freedom of speech, to go after people violating, you know, tiny nothing laws in order to just keep harassing and haranguing mainly poor people, mostly poor people across this country. And these cop cities are, a lot of them are being trained, believe it or not, by Israelis to bring that thread back around. They're being trained by Mossad and other Israeli IDF. And that training is then put out on our streets as to how to effectively harm protesters and harm those who are trying to fight back against a genocidal, absolutely, by textbook fucking definition, genocidal regime. That is what the U.S. is. You cannot ship bombs to blow up children every 36 hours for 11 months, for over 11 months, and not be the definition of a genocidal regime. And that's on both sides. So to sit here and go, oh, well, this one's got the smiley face of the genocidal regime. This one's got the frowny face of the genocidal regime. It, as Butch Ware says, the fear-mongering's not going to work on me. And then I'll just play the end here again. But the co-host, her last name's Rye. I can't remember her first name. Someone can put it in the chat for me. She was very upset at the idea, at hearing this truth.
Having their heads knocked open, or you have the cops standing to the side at UCLA so the thugs can knock kids' heads open. So I'm sorry, the fear mongering ain't gonna work on me.
The only is very dangerous rhetoric to say there are two sides of the same coin. I do think it's important for us to
dangerous
understand.
To the Democrats, yes.
I think it's dangerous.
That's Democrat.
Yeah, she says dangerous rhetoric to say they're two sides of the same coin. They're absolutely two sides of the same. But you just have to study this shit. Just read the right books for like 10 minutes. Honestly, you read one Chris Hedges book and you read Confessions of an Economic Hitman and maybe two other books and you'll have it. You'll get it. You got it. Good. Or you can pick up a book called Bullet Points and Punchlines if you'd like by Lee Camp, or an ebook called Dangerous Idea. You know, not to say anything. I'm just saying. And that should clarify it for you. Here's also Jill Stein talking about trying to explain to them about the Ukraine war.
Words of John F. Kennedy. We must not negotiate out of fear, but we must not fear to negotiate. Look at the Ukraine war, for example, which is an absolute disaster. It is a war being fought to the last Ukrainian. No one is paying a steeper price in blood than the people of Ukraine right now. This is an absolutely criminal and tragic war, but it was completely avoidable. Even after it began, there were negotiations taking place under the auspices of Turkey, which brought together the various parties, and you had a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. And that peace treaty was disrupted by the U.S. and by the UK, which came in and said, no, you may not make peace here. The U.S. has been invested in this, unfortunately, as part of our plan for the expansion of U.S. influence following the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's a longer story. We don't need to go into it. But this is an absolutely avoidable conflict. You have to be very skeptical of the talking points that we're hearing.
And I think that was very well said. And of course, those are the type of facts that you will never hear on that show or any mainstream show. They're not going to mention the peace deal that was going to be signed within the first month after the beginning of the war in Ukraine. They're not going to mention the Maidan coup that the U.S. created in order to facilitate a proxy war in Ukraine. They're not going to mention any of this. They're just going to do the old goldfish memory, woke up yesterday and, oh my God, Russia invaded, very upsetting. End of story. So her name is Angela Rye. Thank you for the help. Truth to Tweet says she's a DNC stooge. There's also video of her circulating, going to DNC events. So this is what part of the reason she hates Jill Stein so much. And I thought this put it pretty well about the two-party system. Someone posted this. This is by Peter Camejo. This is the great power of the two-party system. The Republicans are in charge of promoting the interests of the corporate rulers and to push it as far as they can. The Democrats are to control the people so that no opposition ever appears. And that's a very different task. And therefore, they appear as very different parties. But they serve the same moneyed interests, and they actually work together as a team to create utter confusion in America. I thought there was an interesting way of putting it because I haven't heard it put quite in that way, pretty close, but not quite that way of the Democrats are to control the people so that no opposition is created against the corporate rulers, and the Republicans are there to promote the interests of the corporate rulers. And it's an interesting way of putting it, that one side pushes forward everything the corporate rulers want, and the other side is basically there in case the people start to get uppity, in case the people start to get a whiff of the fact that the corporate rulers are getting everything they want and we're getting nothing we want, in case people start to get a whiff that they can't afford healthcare, in case people start to get a whiff that 2/3 of Americans can't afford a house, in case people start to get a whiff that 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, in case those things start to resonate with people, in case those things start to matter to people, you have the Democrats to go, I'm going to fix those things. And just a beautiful release valve for all the anger, for all the fury, for all the ire, for all the frustration, for all the anguish that sits inside your average American as they have their lives destroyed by paying for health care. Someone posted a receipt. I know every once in a while one of these receipts goes viral. Someone posted a receipt for their hospital visit. They went to the hospital for a snake bite. The cost, and it was they stipulated different things. It was like $80,000 or $100,000 for pharmaceuticals, and the cost in total was over $200,000 to go to the hospital for a snake bite. So anyway, when people start to unite, the Democrats are there to say, we're with you and we will help, and then do exactly the same thing in action as the Republicans. Here's an interesting fact about the polling that's been going on across the country. Not that everything should revolve around the presidential election. I'm more about ideas. I prefer that we focus on ideas rather than focus on just the faces. But Stein is leading Harris among Muslim voters in several swing states. And why do you think that is? Why do you think Stein is leading Harris among Muslim voters, which are a key demographic in a lot of these swing states? Why do you think that is? Oh, maybe it's because Harris supports a genocide. Maybe it's because the Harris and Biden administration have created this. I mean, this is a U.S.-backed genocide. Not only are they funneling the weapons in there, not only are they running cover with the propaganda every single day, but on top of that, you have the fact that they could turn it off at any moment. One phone call, 30 seconds. Biden says the weapons are stopped. You're not getting any more until everything stops. There's no bombing. There's no IDF in Gaza. There's no holding up of food, holding up of water. There's no destroying of wells. All of it stops. It'd be over. Be over that minute. Now, that doesn't fix Gaza, but the murders would be over for the moment. Anyway, so that's the thing, is if people are upset that Stein is winning among Muslim voters in these swing states, if that makes people who want to see Harris win upset, and they think that Stein is bad for them and bad for the country, then maybe tell Harris to stop supporting genocide. How about that? Step one. And yet, Kamala Harris is putting out videos, ads that support, that trumpet, that herald her ability to drop bombs. That's what she's doing. Here is her ad, as posted by Medea Benjamin, Code Pink. I've had her on the show many times, friend of mine. Here is the Kamala Harris ad on television, and Medea Benjamin says, I was already going to vote for Jill Stein because of Harris's support of Israel's genocide, but Harris will also move us closer to World War III with Russia. And here's the ad. For those of you listening to the podcast, unfortunately, it's mostly visual, but it's only 30 seconds.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And when one man is enslaved, all are not free.
American presidents, Republican and Democrat, have always defied Russia's communist dictators and defended American ideals. Kamala Harris gets this.
If we stand by while an aggressor invades its neighbor with impunity, they will keep going.
Kamala Harris will stand up to Putin, protect our allies, and keep us safe.
Can you imagine putting out an ad in today's world where we're on the cusp of nuclear war and going, I'll drop more bombs. I'll drop. Now, someone in the chat, sorry, I missed your name, but said, so will Trump. Sir Edward Ross said, so will Trump. Absolutely. I do not want you to think that me calling out both sides means I'm not calling out Trump. They absolutely will both continue dropping just crazy amounts of bombs. But here's Kamala Harris saying we cannot stand by while someone invades their neighbor. Well, how about genocide's their neighbor? How about that? Because that's what's going on in Gaza. Because remember, Israel denies that they own Gaza. Because if they owned Gaza, then they would have to give them they'd have to give them the right to walk around all the rest of Israel. They'd have to give them the right to be a part of Israel. And they don't want that. So instead, they want Gaza and the West Bank stuck between not being part of Israel. No, you can't walk outside that wall. You are not us. You are not part of us. You are not part of this country. You are another thing. They want them stuck between that and being their own country, being Palestine. They don't want that. Israel doesn't want that either because that entitles them to an army. It entitles them to have the ability to leave and come and go from their own country. They don't want that at all. They have the right to sovereignty if that's the case. So Israel wants them stuck between not being a nation and not being part of their nation. And that's how they've done it for years and years. But here is Kamala Harris saying we can't just stand by.
If we stand by while an aggressor invades its neighbor with impunity, they will keep going.
Kamala Harris will stand up to Putin.
It's just awful. In today's nation, in today's world, putting out ads of you dropping bombs is just totally unhinged. Okay, and maybe I'm beating a dead horse, as the expression goes, which I feel like PETA probably wants us to change that expression, right? PETA would probably prefer that it be massaging a well-kept horse. I don't know. PETA doesn't look. PETA does a lot of good. I don't want to just make fun of PETA, but it was funny when they decided to make like expressions, like one of their big campaigns, and they sent me something in the mail saying we need to change it from hit two birds with one stone to eating two bagels with one scone. No, feeding two birds with one scone. Was that? It was just stupid. So this is perhaps I'm feeding a no longer hungry horse. But here is Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Jeffrey Sachs at Columbia, on the two-party system. Sorry, 1 second.
I think it's obvious. There's basically one deep state party, and that is the party of Cheney, Harris, Biden, Victoria Nuland, my colleague at Columbia University now. And Nuland is kind of the face of all of this because she has been in every administration for the last 30 years. She was in the Clinton administration, wrecking our policies towards Russia in the 1990s. She was in the Bush administration, Jr., with Cheney, wrecking our policies towards NATO enlargement. She was in then the Obama administration as Hillary's spokesperson first, and then making a coup in Ukraine in February 2014. Not a great move. Started a war. Then she was Biden's Undersecretary of State. Now, that's both parties. It's a colossal mess, and she's been Cheney's advisor. She's been Biden's advisor. She makes perfect sense. This is the reality. We're trying to find out if there's another party. That's the big question.
Yeah, that's the big question. Is there anything outside of these absolute warmonger, disgusting, I was going to say human beings. They may not be. It's the verdict's out. I don't know if there's an at-home test kit for that one. Are they human beings? I'll let you guys decide if they're human beings. Okay, I don't want to run out of time for this. I said I was going to bring you a little more on Trump's second assassination attempt. The conspiracy theories are swirling, and as you guys well know, I am not one to shy away from conspiracy theories, but I do think there's some that are taking it a little far on this one. But so as I brought you the other day, this guy, Ryan Ruth, he didn't actually fire. So I was going to say shooter, but he actually just was a wannabe assassin. He was laying at the fence of Trump's golf resort when Trump was coming by, and apparently had been waiting for him and had a gun out. And then the Secret Service fired at Ruth, and then Ruth fled. So he's not actually a shooter. He never got a shot off. But as I brought to you the other day, he was part of the Ukraine International Legion, I think it's called, where international people come to Ukraine to help fight Russia. And so he went to Ukraine. He tried to bring in other people as well. And he was completely disenchanted by the experience, then wrote a 291-page book. If you want to go after him, you call it a manifesto. You know, after somebody does something bad, it's a manifesto. Before, like if you had met this guy 2 weeks ago and he handed you his little book, you wouldn't go, it's a manifesto. You go, it's a book. But now it's a manifesto. Anyway, so he wrote a 290-page book about how Trump's to be assassinated, Putin's to be assassinated, all of this to try and stop the war in Ukraine. And strange dude. Has a lot of bizarre history, been arrested for various things. But here's the little bit of update that I have, which is, and maybe you already know, but Max Blumenthal, who I read his, piece, his piece on Twitter on X. I read his piece on Twitter about all these facts, that this guy was part of the U.S. push for war in Ukraine, the U.S. International Legion, to go help Ukraine fight. And Max Blumenthal has now been locked out of all of his accounts. I think both Instagram and Twitter. And they claim he gets a little warning saying that it's because of too many attempts to log in. Now, there's two ways that could happen. One is it's just Twitter locking him out because they want to, and they are tired of him getting this information out to people. And so therefore they're locking him out, but they're claiming it's too many attempts to log in. The other is that you could have like hackers and things do that from afar, attempt to log in a bunch of times and make it look like it's coming, from hackers, which it is. And then that gets you locked out of your accounts. So it could be either. Now, in this case, it would probably have to be Ukrainian hackers or people allied with Ukraine, because it's not clear who else would want to stop him from bringing that information to light. Some say the U.S. would want to, but there's also the fact that this information, I don't know, is still getting out there. If it were any other story, I would say it was probably Israeli hackers who blocked him from his accounts, because Max has done a lot of information. I mean, a lot of reporting on Palestine and Israel's war crimes, etc., and Israel's genocide. So that wouldn't surprise me. But it does seem like someone is trying to stop this this information about Ryan Ruth from getting at least largely read and largely heard about. By the way, I did a poll on my YouTube community page. You can find it at youtube.com/momentofclarity on the community page. I did a poll of you guys, and 1.3 thousand of you have voted. I said, is there anyone to blame other than the man arrested for the new assassination on Trump? And I gave the options: Trump himself for his rhetoric, Democrats and media for their rhetoric, the U.S. war machine, all of the above, and none of the above. And the vast majority of you said all of the above. Trump's rhetoric, Democratic rhetoric, media rhetoric, the U.S. war machine, all those are partially responsible for these attempts on Trump. Now, one of the conspiracies that is running around mainly by Trump supporters is that this is the deep state trying to take Trump out because Trump's going to change the deep state. First of all, I need you to know very clearly, Trump is not going to change the deep state. Trump is part of the billionaire corporate shit show class. That's who he is. From birth, just about. Now, is he different than your average inside the Beltway billionaire class? A little bit on certain things, but he's not going to change anything, as he didn't change anything in the 4 years he was president. He changed absolutely nothing other than giving a giant tax break to billionaires. So, no, he's not going to change the deep state. But beyond that, I think the most important thing is if you understand point one of how the CIA functions, how our deep state functions, just read the first pages of a book. And I'll tell you this, they don't try and assassinate a presidential contender, a former president, 2 times with a guy with a gun in open public and miss both times. If they wanted to, I highly believe that Trump would be dead right now if the CIA was trying to take him out. Now, you know, it's also now the first one was to me, far more legitimate attempt in that you had Secret Service deciding not to take this guy out on the roof, deciding not to do just about anything about it, despite the fact that people in the audience are pointing up at the guy on the roof saying there's a guy there on the roof with a gun, and still they do nothing. And the bullet missed by a millimeter. So that to me could be a little bit, some deeper, more skilled actors. But this guy at the fence of the golf course laying there for 12 hours with a gun and a GoPro and probably a couple of power bars and a piss in a bottle, who fails to get a shot off and just runs away, and has all these bizarre past. To me, this one does not seem deep state-ish. I'll tell you that much. Also, as Caitlin Johnstone put out in her article on it, Trump has been very useful to the ruling elite. Like, there are circles of the ruling class that don't like him for various reasons, but they've gotten massive tax cuts. They've funneled crazy amounts of money to Wall Street. When Trump was still in office during the pandemic, they funneled $4.5 trillion just into Wall Street. They increased the monetary supply by 20%, almost all of that going to the rich and powerful. We doubled the number of billionaires. Like the U.S. empire has continued to be militaristic throughout Trump's time in office. The number of military bases around the world stayed the same. The number of bombs being dropped by the Pentagon actually increased under Trump. The amount of oil being pumped increased. Everything that the ruling elite want stayed the same or got worse. So Trump has been very useful. He also has managed to divide the country, right? Which is very useful to them. They need a divided country. If we all unite against the top 1% or top 0.1%, that's when they're fucked. When we're all just like, it's Trump, it's Harris, it's Biden, it's Trump, Harris, Biden, they win. They always win. And so they're winning right now. Trump has been very useful to the ruling elite, to the ruling a-holes. See, even a-holes, I know some of you don't like the term elite. A-holes is still, A is like that's like getting an A grade is still the top. That's the number one hole right there. That is like you got the best grade on your hole if you're an a-hole. So there's no good term. I don't know what you guys want me to call them. Maybe that'll be my next poll on Locals and on YouTube is what do you guys want me to call the ruling elite? Parasite, the top echelon of parasites. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap up for today. I have Government Secrets tomorrow. That's 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific at youtube.com/moment of clarity. I'll also post it on Locals. And then I'll be back with another Dangerous Ideas Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. You have to just show up because everybody tells me almost every day. They don't alert people. They're not going to tell you. Just show up. Just be here. And if you really want to support the show, if you feel like you got 38 cents worth and you want both of my ebooks for free, then sign up at leecamp.net. Scroll down to become a subscriber. That's how you actually support the show. If you want to join up for free, then click become a member, but you don't get all those perks like the ebooks. So I hope you will sign up at leecamp.net. All right. I will see you tomorrow for Government Secrets or Thursday for Dangerous Ideas.